Okay, all right. You know what? That is 3 years ago.
Right.
You
So
know,
if we were sat in
the thing is that
1942, would you have been on the radio going, "Look, don't worry about it. Hitler invaded Poland 3 years ago"?
I didn't say any of those things, and I don't like when someone tries to give words and interpret without understanding. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm off.
In this video, we're going to see a British reporter absolutely drag a Donald Trump bootlicker and make her quit live on air. And I do not think there is anything I love more than watching MAGA bootlickers getting dismantled on live TV. Let's get into it. Man, this one is deliciously uncomfortable. We've got Dr. Joanne Harper-Hayes, reportedly a former Trump transition advisor, waltzing into a British interview thinking she can do the usual slippery talking point routine. Nope, not today. Because British political broadcasting, when it's on form, is basically answer the question or admit you can't. And the second she's challenged on Ukraine, Putin and NATO, the whole confident facade starts wobbling. Stay with me, this escalates fast.
I've got to turn now to, as promised, to Dr. Joanne Harper-Hayes, former global vice president of Republicans overseas, as an advisor to Donald Trump's 2017 transition team. Dr. Harper-Hayes, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Do you understand why so many in this country and in Europe more generally would have seen what happened in the Oval Office as an attempt to humiliate President Zelensky and be repulsed by it?
Well, if they watched all 53 minutes, then I don't think they would have that feeling. If they saw clips of it, which of course will be clips of J.D. Vance and Trump being very angry with Zelensky, then of course they would come to that.
Could you imagine President Trump speaking to, say, President Putin in that way? And isn't it precisely the point that he wouldn't, that is part of the problem?
Well, if President Putin pushed him the way Zelensky pushed Trump,
What did
bet.
Zelensky do? What did he do that was so egregious in your view?
Well, one is that he started litigating the 2014. He said, I don't want a ceasefire.
He said he wants peace repeatedly. He just doesn't want it on Russia's terms, which you'll understand because Russia invaded his country.
But he said, I don't want a ceasefire. He made that comment to Trump.
He said he doesn't want a ceasefire if he knows that Putin is just going to renege on it a couple of months later, which is fair enough, isn't it? Because he's done that repeatedly, you will accept.
Exactly.
No, not exactly. I mean, the point is that, of course, anyone wants a ceasefire, but there's no point in having a ceasefire, is there? Which is what Zelensky was saying to Trump, if Putin is just going to renege on it shortly afterwards.
And Trump was saying, how do you really know? I mean, if you're really coming from that position, that no one can guarantee anything. But if you don't move forward to get something into an agreement and then be able to put the right security.
But what has Putin said that gives you or President Trump any indication at all that he even wants a ceasefire? Putin has said he doesn't want a ceasefire at this point.
Putin is... Look, I'm not here to have an argument because you clearly have a position that I don't agree with.
What would that be? What would that position be?
Well,
I mean, we would both agree, wouldn't we, for a start, that Putin started the war?
Yeah, what I would say is that Putin legally violated international law. Morally, he thought he was right, and strategically...
But you would agree that morally he was wrong?
No, I would not agree morally he was wrong. I would agree legally he was wrong.
You would agree, you would not think that a man who literally, as we speak, still sends drone attacks to kill Ukrainian civilians is morally wrong?
Oh, and you think that Ukraine isn't doing anything to the Russians?
Ukraine didn't invade Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine. That you wouldn't agree that was morally wrong? Okay,
all right. You know what? That is 3 years ago.
Right. So if we were sat in 1942, Would you have been on the radio going, look, don't worry about it. Hitler invaded Poland 3 years ago.
Right, so we get into the meat of it, and you can literally feel the strategy she walked in with. It's the usual playbook. Minimise the outrage, shift the frame, and pretend the only reason anyone's angry is because they saw clips. Not the substance, not the behaviour, just editing. Of course. And look, I'm trying, really trying, not to roll my eyes out of my skull here, because this is the same dodge every time. If you watched all 53 minutes, yeah? And if I watched all 53 minutes of a house fire, would the fire become less on fire? Come on. Then the reporter drops the killer comparison. Could you imagine Trump speaking to Putin like that? And this is where it starts to unravel, because it's the one question that exposes the entire con. If you're supposedly the tough, strong, deal-making crowd, why is the toughness always reserved for allies and democratically elected leaders, and the softness always reserved for authoritarian strongmen? Funny, isn't it? Now she tries to pivot. Zelensky pushed him. Zelensky litigated 2014. Zelensky said he doesn't want a ceasefire, and the reporter, calm, surgical, just goes, essentially, hang on. He doesn't want a ceasefire because Putin repeatedly breaks ceasefires, which is, objectively, a fair concern. That's not belligerence, that's pattern recognition. And here's the bit that made my jaw clench. She admits Putin doesn't even want a ceasefire at this point. So what are we doing? What's the grand genius plan here? Pressure Ukraine to stop defending itself while the invader openly says he's not stopping? That's not peace. That's surrender with better PR. Then comes the moral question. Not legal, moral. Is it morally wrong to invade a neighbour and keep bombing civilians? And she says, out loud, that she wouldn't agree it's morally wrong, only legally wrong. Good Lord. Let me stop right there. That is the mask slipping clean off. Because when someone can't bring themselves to morally condemn a war of aggression, when it's drones hitting civilians, when it's an invaded country fighting for its existence, that's not nuance. That's apologetics. That's laundering brutality through semantics. And the reporter does what more American interviewers should do, refuses to let the guest hide behind foggy language. He pins it down. He makes her own words heavy. And when she's cornered, here we go, victim mode. You're twisting my words. I didn't sign on for hypotheticals. I'm done. And off she goes, rage quitting because an interviewer asked her to follow her argument to its logical conclusion. So tell me, was that bias or was that accountability? Drop it in the comments because I've got thoughts.
You know what? I didn't sign on for this hypothetical discussion.
It's not hypothetical. I'm just trying to tease out the logic of what you're saying, Dr. Harper-Hayes.
One is that James Baker and Thatcher and Mitterrand and Kohl, etc., had promised that NATO would not move 1 inch eastward, and that was violated.
Those
so
countries.
You want to look at all the different people that violated their agreement?
When did America start basically just sort of representing what Moscow thinks? Those countries wanted to be part of the NATO club. Your club. Are you saying that they should never have been allowed to exercise their democratic and sovereign rights as nations and join that club?
Oh, God. You know what? I don't like having my words twisted. No, I really don't.
You don't like... Well, but that's the point of an interview, isn't it? Is to discuss what you're saying. And I'm just asking you... You're saying... With respect, Doctor, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. You're saying that those countries should never have been allowed to join NATO, and then we wouldn't have been in this situation. And I'm saying to you that surely those countries should have been allowed...
I didn't say that. Well, see, that's why... No, hold on a minute.
But you cited what happened in the... so you're saying that it's fine for them to join NATO then?
I didn't say any of those things, and I don't like when someone tries to give words and interpret without understanding. I'm done. Okay. I'm off. I don't like you.
Okay. Well, that's fine, Dr. Harper-Hayes. Maybe some of the listeners won't like you, but that's fine. I'm entirely indifferent to that. I'm very grateful for your time. Dr. Joanne Harper-Hayes there, former Global Vice President of Republicans overseas. Apparently I'm not going to be on her Christmas card list. Maybe I will be with Oliver in Harlesden, though. Oliver.